Welcome back to Persona 5 Royal. I'm not going to waste much time here because we're going to get right into this. This is the final stretch of the palace. Also, Akechi here kind of sums up what a lot of people think about Maruki.
True.
And once again, I feel like Yusuke can only say that because he's come so far. I probably should try and duplicate a skill card though. Actually, let's duplicate Enduring Soul. This is a good skill card to have on basically all your personas if they have a spare skill slot for it, so it's a very good thing to have as a card. What's Arn saying? Yeah, that's kind of true too.
Shall we go?
And meanwhile, Morgana's like, I don't have any of those tragic backstories that I want erased. Yeah, it's definitely painful for Sumire to be seeing all that again.
Nice. What are your
How Violet got her groove back, I guess.
Let us depart.
Also, as of recording this, they've recently announced Wargroove 2, which I wasn't expecting, but it's a pretty decent game for Advance Wars fans. But now, it is time. Time for the Twilight Corridor. Obvious joke 1, it's so named because it's as painful as this. Somewhat less obvious joke 2, it's so named because by the end of it, you'll be looking like this. Before we get into the reason why this area is a pain, those statues there are not doing a good job of, or rather, Maruki's not doing a good job of convincing people he's over the whole Rumi thing. Like, he may not want to, have her in his life romantically anymore, but rooms like this definitely show that he still puts her on a pedestal to an unhealthy degree. And this is where the people who pass through those gates go.
What?
They're so happy they're lighter than air and are floating up to somewhere. Yeah, this is basically a Garden of Eden analogy. You can even see the Rumi statues holding an apple. So Rumi is very much being treated here as the Eve to Maruki's Adam.
Whoa!
But remember those plant experiments earlier? That was actually foreshadowing for this. It's something you might not notice until a repeat playthrough, but the plants in those rooms obey exactly the same logic they do here. We need to make safe passageways across these stairs by using this device over here. So we also have a bit of a light theory puzzle, but thankfully the game explains every element of light color theory that you need to know. I do remember an old puzzle book that I had as a kid did explain that mixing light works differently to mixing paint, and this shows it right here, so we don't actually need to know how to mix light just yet, but if we put every light on, it'll become white. So currently green is turned on, and the green stairs are active.
Joker.
At this point, there is no harm in turning every color on, because that will open up every pathway without closing off any pathways. And with everything here on, we can explore around here. I also didn't notice this before. Steel. Creepy tentacle. Even the interface thinks these are creepy. You can also climb up some of these without needing to turn on any bridges. That's important to know. And we can grab this chest, jump up here. I like the way that you can see these vines on the side just kind of crawling over the edges. This is sort of a unique take on a plant-based dungeon. because typically plant-based dungeons are just forests. But as people will draw attention to here, we can't go any further because those plant growths on the sides, the lights pointing at them, you might notice the lights above, they reflect every light that we have turned on, so red, green, and blue. But the lights on the sides are only red. This means that if red was turned off, these would not be overgrowing. This means that we need to turn off red, and conveniently, this switch here lets us turn off red. You might notice the lights on this machine are now cyan because green and blue are on, and green and blue together make cyan. However, cyan is not specifically required for anything right now. Well, we can crank all the dials, but it will block off some paths. If the barriers weren't here, then there would be no negative consequence to cranking all the dials. So yeah, something we have to keep in mind. The good news is the map does clearly indicate to you which bridges and which barriers are active. So for example, we've got a couple of blue walls in the way, just preventing us from accessing the end of the area in particular, since we need to get rid of both a blue and a green barrier to reach there. Of course, we don't have all the info just yet because it hasn't marked on the map the locations of light switches, or which of those switches contain which lights. Also, the team that I'm currently going with is one that I'm going to call, at least for this point, I'm going to call it Team I Kind of Ship It, and also Akechi is here. But Byaku's show up alongside Huster at this point, and I've actually got some different skills on a few characters here, just, not so much skills, I've got some different, accessories, because I wanted to try out some things here. We've got that thing shot, so let's smack it with a giant sword, which is what you do to things that are shot in this game. Unfortunately, you don't have ice, but if I, to use a bit of a weird sentence, if I still have Satan, actually these things are weak to ice anyway, so it's not really like that to make much of a difference. But yeah, I can go for, I'm sure, like I definitely have, oh, actually you have Ice Age. But we can see, well, rather here, Joe can call out Satan, so I guess that's a reward in and of itself. But yeah, Arn has the Thunder Rain accessory, and Makoto has the, Severe Ice accessory. There's a reason for that, but I'll go into that later. So here we have a device that only lets us switch on or off green, but here we don't want to use this device. Up here, we cannot go any further because this is a red bridge, but we can hop down here to a device that lets us turn on or off blue, but only blue. We're not going to use this device. We're instead going to head all the way down to this end, which requires blue, because this is an easy to miss node. March 25th. A very interesting person came for consultation today. She lost her older sister in an accident and is now grief-stricken. I couldn't just sit there and watch her suffer through her life. The whole point of my research is to save people like her. My experiments have taught me I can change any cognition in my presence. If she can't escape the guilt and pain in her life, all I have to do is make her believe she is her sister. That will be the most direct and effective treatment option. That being said, I did have to alter her cognition quite a bit for the effect to succeed. This is my first time altering a cognition so greatly. I should keep an eye on her to see how things develop. So yeah, Sumire was both a counseling patient but also a bit of an unwitting test subject here. But this one lets us control the red switch. But now what I want to do is I want to go back and turn off blue. Because I don't need blue anymore. That was just to get that thing. I'm going to talk more about, like I have a lot to say about that whole note and a lot of things about Maruki, but I do want to make sure that I'm being as clear as I can about these puzzles because I know that a lot of people have trouble with them. So now we're going to turn on red. A bit of an underrated aspect I feel of this area is I like the way the knobs and the buttons are rendered, especially with their sound effects. It actually makes me feel like I'm actually pressing buttons. I don't know, like, why I just like that so much, but it's like, as somebody who's actually dealt with buttons and knobs a lot like that, I can just almost feel like I'm, you know, turning the knobs and pressing the buttons, just like Joker is. Oh, hi there, Master and students. Let's see if I can deal with this fight more efficiently than I did when they were a mini-boss.
If it has no weaknesses, why not try brainwashing it?
Makoto advocates for brainwashing. You heard it here first. That's amazing. Well, actually,
Ice attacks are out.
no fire's fine, so wage war is okay.
Look at how angry it is. Hit it with
So
some
now I can
cyber
do this, and then I can baton pass the arm and go for some fire.
Good one,
But yeah, while I'm doing this fight, I can just talk a little bit about this. Something that I was thinking about Maruki recently. I feel like the best way to sum up Maruki and the character is this. The reason why Maruki is such an effective villain is that he doesn't realize he is one. That's the thing. Some people point out how, you know, creepy it is that Maruki overrode somebody's entire cognition. But from Maruki's perspective, and I think it actually makes things even more unsettling, is that Maruki doesn't even consider that to be creepy at all. From his point of view, she just said, I wish I was my sister. Sometimes I think things would be better if I were my sister. And so Maruki thought, you know what? I have the power to rewrite cognitions. I can make that happen. And doing that would be in her best interest because that's what she wants. That's what will make her happy. It will get rid of her trauma. And again, she asked for it. It's what she wants. So Maruki, from his perspective, is not doing anything bad at all. And that ties into the name of the music. Both pieces of music in Maruki's Palace. The first one is Gentle Madman, which I think sums up Maruki quite well, in that Maruki himself is also quite mentally unstable, but he doesn't really realize it. He's kind of the real one who needs therapy, and as you can see by all of these Rumi statues, he certainly let that incident with Rumi affect him a lot more than he might like to think, and I feel like that has led to his unhealthy mentality. In fact, you can probably already guess what his treasure might be related to, the source of his distortion. But in addition to that, yeah, we just got a tutorial there on multicolored light. So for example, purple requires red and blue to be turned on, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Oh, you're back. The theme that's playing now is called Out of Kindness.
Okay.
And that also sums up Maruki quite a lot. He's doing everything here out of kindness, or at least he believes that he is. It's just kind of interesting because you wouldn't often consider kindness to be a villainous motivation, but in the case of Maruki, they really make that work. I feel like Maruki also would fit what TV Tropes calls obliviously evil, in that he doesn't really realize a lot of the issues with his methods or a lot of the pain that he's causing. But before I go back onto Maruki, one thing that I want to say here is we've got another somewhat complicated puzzle, and this is actually the last one, but I'm not going to engage with it just yet. What I'm going to be doing first is heading straight to the Will Seed room.
Hey!
Because yes, that's where we need to go in order to get out of this area. Past that giant Rumi statue. But as Morgana mentions, there is a Will Seed over here. And it is the last Will Seed in the game, and they are going to make us work for it in more ways than one. But what I want to do for this Will Seed is head straight in here. Now this is what I like to consider a separate puzzle from the rest of this floor. This Will Seed room. So, the goal of this Will Seed room, it's kind of hard to see from here, but there are all three coloured barriers in front of the Will Seed room. Red, green, and blue. There is a terminal in front of it that lets you turn on and off red, and only red. Your goal for this area is to reach the room in front of the Will Seed with only red left turned on. So, to start, I'm going to turn on everything at this one terminal. So yeah, red was on earlier, so now blue and green are on, so everything is now turned on. From here, we can either go up here, or we can cross the green bridge and go down. Either one is the same. So there's a light here for green, which we need to turn off because there's a yellow barrier in the way. So let's turn off green, so now we just have purple on. And from here, we can go past this. This is the red one. This here lets us switch on and off green. But here is a chest. Okay, so now that we have this chest, we're going to go over here. We're not going to turn off green at this switch. We're going to turn on green at this switch. Which means that, as you can see, all three of those barriers are in place in front of the will see, which means that we can go up here. And from here, we can turn off blue. This means that yellow is still active, and green is still active. But that means we can go down here, turn off green again, and now, look what we've got. Only red is active, and we have a path to right here, where we can turn off red. If I can actually activate it, there we go. We can now turn off red, and now everything is off, and we have a clear path to the will seed. So these puzzles are basically... I find what helps with these puzzles is if you remember the last move you made, so that you can go back and undo your last move if you ever get stuck. Now, for this will seed, well, you know, I may as well just top up all of my SP here, because it's like the last dungeon. Why not just chug all of our energy drinks? I'm gonna leave 5 of each one, though. So, for this Will Seed Guardian, I'm going to be bringing Ann, Yusuke, and Makoto. And I also have Ice Personas on Joker.
What would you like to do?
I think I did make sure to say a very, 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 very long time ago, so I don't blame you if you don't remember it, that there was something I wanted to do with Freeze very close to the end of the game, and that's it right here. There are a few ways to take on this Will Seed Guardian, but disappointingly, just like Shido's powers, it's just another Fafnir. The only difference is it's immune to more mental ailments than normal. So Psi Technical is not the best way of taking this guy down.
Strong and immune to physical strikes? Brute force won't work.
But here, I like to take advantage of the fact that Freeze will remove an enemy's resistances to physical attacks and guns. And I have Makoto here to increase the odds of Freeze working. So step 1, let's try and Diamond Dust and get the Freeze off first. It may not work. Okay, no Freeze there. I have Diamond Dust on Makoto just in case, but for now, let's, this is like a stupidly expensive debilitate, but oh well. This guy does like to use Nuke Break, but bringing Haru is generally a bad idea. It also has Mega Dolor and Debilitate. But okay, now I hope I don't set up this entire strategy only to get stupidly okay, there we go, I did get the Freeze. Now, Freeze only works for one attack. But I'm going to have Arn set up high energy here. Arn also has Shock, just in case I want to go for Shock instead. But that's not going to remove its physical immunities.
What's the plan?
So in this case, I probably should aim for... I probably should have actually put the Ring of Pride on Joker so I could charge Yusuke remotely, but... I think I'll just wait until Yusuke gets his go. I want to leave it to him.
I appreciate it.
And yeah, Joker actually does get double his max HP restored thanks to Demon's Bite. But yeah, here we go. Brave Blade you in the face. Which does work, despite the fact that you're normally repellent to that. And now I can go over to Joker.
It's up to you.
and use a concentrate boosted ice or psi. Curse is gonna work. And there it goes. So according to the wiki, it's only immune to despair, fear, and panic when it comes to, or confusion when it comes to mental ailments. But I swear in earlier playthroughs I saw it be immune to more than that. So I personally like to use freeze for that fight. I just wanted to use it as an example of how removing the enemy's physical immunities can be really good. But now we have access to the final will seed. You are my seed now, as Akechi is saying. I'm kind of surprised there isn't an achievement or a Thieves' Den award for getting all the will seeds. But this one is actually a little weird, because I was going to wait until the next Mementos visit to go over this, but I may as well mention it now since we're getting the accessory. I said before that you can only turn a crystal into a ring once the palace that you got that crystal from has been erased.
That's the third will seed. I never would have guessed Dr. Maruki's desires would take this form.
Now, after Maruki's palace is erased, that's the end of the game, and you no longer have a chance to go back to Mementos, because in Royal, his is the final dungeon. This actually means that you cannot get the Ring of Sorrow until New Game Plus. So consider it a New Game Plus exclusive, just like Saturnile is. Now, in order to get out from here, we're going to need to turn off green and turn on blue. So we're now in purple. And once we're in purple, we can hop out of this area and get back onto the main path. So, back in the main path, and this is what I like to call part 3 of the Twilight Corridor. So step 1 of this part is going to be to turn on green and to turn off blue. So from here we have access to a thing that lets us switch green and blue. The question is whether I want to do it from here or whether I want to do it from elsewhere. No, actually, I do want to do it from here, because if you look closely at the map, after having yellow active, we actually have a clean path to a treasure chest now, if we just go across all of these bridges here. Firstly, though, remember that this one right here lets you switch blue and red. But yeah, let's make our way down here, and we can get this lock chest.
Oh!
And now our next step is to turn on blue and turn off red. But this one only lets us switch green, so we're going to have to do it from... should be this one. So this is going to put things in cyan. And there are a couple of cyan bridges here, but there are also cyan barriers. However, it may look like we're being mostly blocked off by cyan here, because there's one cyan barrier here, and there's another cyan barrier here, but if we go this way, we actually have a clean shot to the end of this area. Just up these two, and across this cyan, and now we're at the end, and this final bridge is the only one in the palace that requires white, and conveniently, we have access to all the colors here, so we can turn on red, and now we have white active, and that is the end of the Twilight Corridor.
Alright!
As Ryuji says, the finish line. So yeah, overall, the Twilight Corridor, if you practice it in advance like I do, it's like not that bad, but it can very easily, it's one of these puzzles that, like again, I do recommend keeping your last step in mind so you can undo it, because otherwise, like, if you just run around hitting every switch just over and over and over, you can quickly get things very, very messed up and complicated.
Is there a safe room around here somewhere?
But we have a safe room here.
We found a new safe room.
And then a password door right in front of us. And if you look very closely, you might have been able to see one final mini-boss. So... Yeah, I do wonder what's past here, but this is the home stretch of the palace. We only have
Now,
this left to go.
Let us depart. What to do?
Yeah, true. It does feel like Maruki is empty in a lot of ways.
Well,
Again, that incident with Rumi just really affected him. But while we're getting this conversation, one other thing that I want to talk about with Maruki is that I feel like one of his flaws is that he tends to just apply a knee-jerk sledgehammer solution to things without really thinking them through.
yes.
He might present himself as being a calm researcher, but he's more impulsive than you might think. Like, for example, with Rumi, he's like, okay, she is, she's suffered horrible trauma because... And as Morgana is saying, yeah, this is the end. If you feel like you've missed any chests, make sure you get them now. But like with Rumi, it's like, she suffered horrible trauma because of that one incident. Well, if I erase that incident from her memory, then she'll be fine, right?
What
Then
are
with
your
Sumire,
thoughts?
she says, I want to be my sister. Maruki thinks, sure, I'll make it so she is her sister. That'll solve everything. And he's also done that with the people of the general public as well.
should write something.
Like that person who was doing like art and was struggling, and Maruki's like, okay, good, I'll make it so he's not doing art anymore. Now he's not struggling.
Oh,
And that's another case where, applied wholesale to all of reality, you can quickly see why that might become a problem in the future. Maruki, in a sense, may only be focused in just short-term solutions to happiness rather than addressing the underlying problems. And thinking about it, that's a very, very bad thing for a counselor. It's kind of a textbook example of bad therapy, really.
Joker-senpai.
Is that one of the first times she actually says Joker-senpai? I feel like she doesn't really say that in voice dialogue much. But we conveniently have one more tape room. And thankfully the tape is here.
So, what brings you back here after all these years?
That's a comprehensive study on the research you tried to shut down all these years ago.
I know how to read. What I meant was, why are you bringing this to me now?
Oh, this is just a quick visit out of spite. I wanted to show you in person that I found the concrete evidence you had discontinued my research over.
So it appears. I'll admit you've impressed me on that point, at least. But such praise does nothing now. All this discussion is in the past. Why can't you just let it stay there and move on?
No can do, Professor. Cognitive science has made too great an impact on this world to be abandoned like that.
What are you saying?
The psychotic breakdown incidents, the sudden changes of heart in adults that the Phantom Thieves claim to make. I'm nearly willing to call these events concrete evidence of cognitive science in action. How about you? And the one person pulling the strings in the background of this, Congressman Masayoshi Shido. He seems to be confessing to all sorts of crimes now that the Phantom Thieves have changed his heart. Years ago, Shido took notice of my research, stole it away from me, and made others develop it for his own gain. Not only that, he used cognitive science somehow to induce the politically motivated psychotic breakdowns. Now, you're heavily involved in that series of events, aren't you?
What are you planning on doing with me?
Oh, nothing at all. As I said before, I only came here out of spite. That paper, my work, is going to change the world.
Change the world? And where's the money for that? Where's the power to do it? You're no Shido. What can someone like you actually do?
That paper there is just the first step. I've learned how to change the cognition of not just an individual, but all of humanity. And I will do it. No matter how long it takes.
Gah! Enough of this dribble. Get out of my office and don't show your face here again, hear me?
What is this?
What's your problem now?
Huh? You don't see this? The sky just...
The time has come.
This voice...
The time is finally at hand. I am the other you, dwelling in the realm of mankind's hearts.
The other... me? Wait, the realm of mankind's hearts? Are you telling me that this realm is...
You may have no knowledge of it, but I have been at your side for much longer than our current meeting. Finally, your reality and the sea of hearts from which I came have truly become one in this moment. Now, the time for your unjustly persecuted ideology is at hand. I am thou. Thou art I.
That's it. I finally get it. To think it'd be so...
Hey, what are you mumbling about? I told you to get out!
Yes. I'll be on my way. Finally. Now I can finally...
Shido.
To think he was the one who stymied Dr. Maruki's research.
As I said, it was not too hard to figure that out.
You know, I've been wondering ever since we saw the earlier video. Do you think there was some kind of connection between my mom's cognitive science research and Dr. Maruki's?
After he crushed Maruki's chance at researching the field, he had his own pawns do it for him instead. Although I doubt Shido's researchers knew anything about the subject in the way Maruki did. That sounds exactly like the kind of plan that man would scheme up.
That bastard! Wait, now's not the time to get pissed about that.
There's another thing about that video nobody's mentioned yet. That being that appeared near the end was most likely Maruki's persona.
The thou art I thing made that kind of clear.
The sky did turn red like that. I wonder if that was the day we fought against the God of Control.
So Maruki went to show that professor his research out of spite on Christmas Eve.
Lady Lavenza did tell us that reality and mementos were merged together during that time.
And Maruki could see all of that craziness because he was aware of the cognitive world.
As you've all seen for yourselves, a full awakening to a persona can't happen unless you're within the metaverse.
Okay, this is somewhat a convenient hand wave, but yeah, that is kind of true. This also is technically true of Persona 3 and 4 now that I think about it, because in 3, the Dark Hour could also be considered the cognitive world and real world merging temporarily. Meanwhile, everyone who awakens their personas in Persona 4 does so within the TV world.
That would mean Maruki really did awaken to his persona in that video.
And at the same time, he attained the ability to meddle with mementos, the cognition of the masses. So it is just as Lavenza had told us.
The sheer number of coincidences necessary for this to happen is just...
At any rate, now we have a better grasp of past events. I'm fairly certain that was a memory Maruki wouldn't want us to have seen either.
And yet, oddly, it was the least guarded of all of them. That door wasn't even locked. And yet he locked the one about him drowning his sorrows.
Yeah. We don't have the time for these questions anyhow. Let's go.
I do think it's interesting how they're bringing things back to Shido and the cognitive science research, because yeah, like, it was an aspect of Shido that I definitely mentioned in earlier videos that I felt was a little weak in the original game. I'm gonna let Sumire be here for this final required fight of the palace. The cognitive science research aspects to Shido, I mean. But here, the day the sky turned red. His persona fully awakens. He sort of had an idea of his persona before, but it was only then that things got fully, you know, awakened, basically. But there is one enemy left in our path. One thing that some have commented about the third semester is that Maruki having a palace despite having a persona caused an uptick in fanfics involving Joker and Akechi having palaces. The thing is, though,
Joker!
I've always felt like the story implied that Maruki's persona was a very special exception. As Morgana says, it shouldn't be physically possible for somebody to have both a palace and a persona. And yet, it's happening for Maruki, which implies that either Maruki's palace, his persona, or both are very abnormal. So I feel like Joker and Akechi would not have palaces despite having personas. I feel like the only way either of them would have a palace is if they hadn't awakened to a persona yet. Though admittedly, the circumstances behind Akechi's own awakening are probably weird enough that he could go the way of Maruki and also have a palace at the same time.
Strong and immune to physical strikes? Brute force won't work.
Dragon Slaying Genius, that's kind of an interesting name. But wasn't Siegfried in like an incestuous relationship in his original myth? The only reason I know that is because in Fire Emblem Sacred Stones, Erika and Ephraim's ultimate weapons are named after Sigmund and Sieglinde, the pair of incestuous siblings from mythology. So, yeah, that's kind of a thing. I'm already Thermopylae right now, so maybe I should actually... I've got freeze boost on Odin, I may as well go for this. And of course I didn't get freeze, as he says. Again, stupidly expensive debilitate go. For Siegfried, I like to shock him, as you can probably figure out by now. Freeze also works decently, but yeah, if you shock him though, you do have to use guns. Mental ailments are also a possibility. Brave Step is only going to really impact me when it comes to guns, so... Actually, Sumire may have not been a great party member for this, but I'm going to keep her in anyway. I guess you could use an ailment vial. Let's try Dizzy. He is vulnerable to that, good. Though I don't think this will get shocked because you can only have one ailment at a time. Okay, you are not immune to nuclear, so I can safely go for Atomic Flare. In that case, though, I probably need to get some concentrates going. I'm gonna wait for him to get up before I go for Forget. Forget will also mean that he's technical from electricity. And him getting 2 actions per turn means, unfortunately, that happens. Again, this is really only going to affect guns, so... I think I'll actually just cure her ailment here. Oh, I have a lot of Strawberry Daifukus, no real reason to be stingy with them. Thought I only had one, but no, I actually have quite a few of them.
Let's go.
Okay, Siegfried. Hopefully you get frozen this time. As he says, of course not. However... No, well, I was gonna say that might work, but missed. Please don't get... Okay, good. Sumire didn't get shocked a second time. Let's try this. Now we get the tech off of this, and then I can baton pass.
Oh, you sure showed me.
Makoto should have enough SP for this atomic flare.
No holds barred.
And yeah, that was a pretty massive increase in damage. In fact, he's probably just going to straight up die to this Thunder Rain. And there we go, didn't even get shock at all. Could have gone for a nuclear technical if I did get shock, but sometimes I like it when the mini-boss actually gets to attack. So yeah, that fight went not the best, and I forgot that he was immune to physical. If I'd known, I probably wouldn't have put in Sumire, but oh well. Sometimes I like to go into mini-boss fights blind, just because it can be more exciting that way. I mean, I remembered the Fafnir's elemental affinities, but not so much the Siegfried.
This is...
Here we are at the end of the palace.
This appears to be quite the paradise. I assume Maruki's trying to convey that the world will turn into something like this if we allow him to abuse his research.
A paradise.
Wait, but this is a dead end, right? And we still haven't found the treasure.
Look again.
The shimmery thing?
This looks very similar to the outside of the research lab itself.
No doubt about it. That's our treasure.
Can also see apples here. I guess those are the apples of knowledge that he's keeping away from the people here.
That also means we've secured our route.
Alright, all we got left is send in the calling card. Oh wait, how are we supposed to do that this time?
Yeah, Maruki already knows that we're coming for him, so shouldn't his treasure always be active?
That's right. Dr. Maruki's been here in the palace this entire time, hasn't he?
And that too.
I'm sure Maruki's well aware that the Phantom Thieves send out their calling cards the day before their heists. Considering his actions up until now, I highly suspect he'll attempt to directly intervene in some way that... My money's on him trying it with Joker.
Good point. In that case, I'll leave the calling card in your hands, Joker.
So what you're saying is Maruki's going to meet with us soon, and we'll have to hand it to him personally then, as our answer.
We could just set up an ambush and destroy him once he steps in our trap, too.
Yeah, but that would also just kill him and destroy this entire palace and give him a mental shutdown in the real world, and, that's the old Akechi. Please don't bring that in here.
No way are we doing that!
Our goal in coming here is to return reality to its original state, not to beat up Dr. Maruki.
I find this line kind of hilarious because every single palace we ended up infiltrating has ended in us beating up the palace ruler.
It was merely a joke. After all, you're all well aware that Maruki's influence on reality goes well beyond this palace. If we make the wrong move in here, we could get eliminated outside the palace, since we lack our personas there.
Maruki's established himself to be not the kind of guy who'd do that, though.
It'd be a safer strategy to change Maruki's heart, just as you all wish.
Cause, as we've gone over before, if Maruki wanted to just erase the Phantom Thieves from existence in his reality, he would have done that already.
We're finally changing his heart. If we steal Dr. Maruki's treasure, everything will go back to the way it was, right?
I don't know for sure, but most likely.
It does mean that everything will go back to the way it was, the good and the bad.
Yeah, of course.
We've all come so far. We can't just give up now.
We gotta stick to our own reality.
About the time limit. Dr. Maruki told you it was February 3rd, correct?
Yeah. He isn't like anything we faced before. We should get as strong as we can before that fight.
One thing that I like about this is that
What would you like to do?
we're ending this palace the way we usually do, by securing an infiltration route to the treasure. I feel like you missed that with Yaldabaoth. Because by that point, like, you just got to the end and you fought him. You didn't have this whole sequence. In fact, Yaldabaoth or the general public didn't even get a proper calling card, which is sort of a shame. So, in this case, it does sort of fit with what we've been doing. Like, it's a little more consistent with how the palaces have gone until then. It feels like just another palace, just a really big and important one. But there is one final thing that I need to do before we head back, and that is, there's actually one more research journal. It's pretty easy to miss, but it's right here. January 1st, I finally done it, with greater results than ever expected. According to my data, reality and the cognitive world are merging. It may be unbelievable, but I'm the one who did it. I never anticipated this, but my theory is being proven with reality as a whole. I no longer need to meddle with the cognitions of individuals. I can create the ideal reality where no one ever suffers again. With this power I've been granted, I shall lead the world to utopia. This is the mission granted to me by the people, by the world. I'm sure he'll come around to accepting it soon. Rumi, I'm so close to fulfilling my promise. In fact, I'll promise you again, here and now, I will create the perfect world for you. And on that note, I will see you all next time as we return to the real world one last time before we take on the last heist target.